On today's show, we're going to be talking about how to choose the best business structure. And what is a business structure? It is the organization of your business into a legally recognizable category within a jurisdiction. We'll talk more about that coming up. Hello, I'm Michael Robinson, host of the Michael S. Robinson Show, right here on Microbin Radio, also author of the book 100 Pennies, and entrepreneur with over 30 years experience in running successful companies. So my shows are about entrepreneurship. They're about how to make your company great and how to expand your business in many different environments, even during COVID-19. Today we're talking about how to structure your company effectively. And the first thing we want to do is talk about the value of a business structure. Well, the value of a business structure is, number one, it provides legitimacy for what you're doing. Legitimacy to your employees, legitimacy to your clients, to your partners, the community in which you serve, and also to the government, because you're recognized as a legal entity by the government. It also provides you with certain types of protections, like from lawsuits or other liabilities that the company might incur. It protects you personally, depending on the business choice that you've made. And in addition to that, it allows you to choose the kind of taxes that you leverage at the end of the year, whether you are paying double taxes or you pay taxes once. So we'll talk about those structures and how they affect you and what would be best based on your needs. So when do you create a business structure? Well, you want to create the business structure before you launch the business. There are 4 basic business structures. You have the sole proprietorship, you have the partnership, you have the limited liability company, LLC, and you have the corporations. And I say corporations because there are multiple types of corporations, and we'll get into that. So first we start with the sole proprietorship. This is the easiest form of business to start or form, because all you really do is that you want to file what's called a DBA, doing business as. It's a one-sheet form filed with the state in which you live. And you want to file it as an entity so it's recognized by the state. And basically you're given permission to operate by this filing. And the way you want to do it is this. Let's say you were to form a company and you thought, well, I don't want to call my company Michael Robinson. I want to call it Bubblegum Works. You want to file the DBA as Bubblegum Works, doing business as Bubblegum Works, but Michael Robinson is the owner. So you file the DBA with the state and you're sent an approval along with an EIN number, an employee identification number that you can file taxes with, payroll taxes, sales taxes, that sort of thing. And at the end of the year, when you're filing your annual tax returns, your profits and your losses are filed through your personal tax returns in a Schedule C form. The Schedule C breaks down your revenues and it also itemizes your expenses. So you're able to basically claim losses on your personal tax returns, which can be good or bad, because if you had a lot of expenses, it can bring down the volume of money that you owe the government. While if you've made a lot of money, then obviously you're paying more money in taxes. But the good thing is that you pay taxes once here with a sole proprietorship. And that is attractive for many people who don't want to have to pay taxes twice. And there are ways to protect your company. Remember I said that there is a liability factor that you want to consider. Well, in a sole proprietorship, you're basically exposed to liability, lawsuits, or any kind of negative implications that your business incurs. You want to be able to protect your personal assets from business liabilities, lawsuits, or any kind of unforeseen negative impact the business might incur. So the sole proprietorship does not give you a lot of protection in that genre. Yes, you can take out a insurance policy to give you extended amounts of money so you have at your disposal in case of something unforeseen happening. But in the event that that's not enough, whomever is suing or looking at getting money from the company can go and attack your personal assets. So on one hand, it's a positive in the sense that it's easy to start, but on the other hand, it opens you up to a lot of potential liabilities. So I do not recommend this kind of business if you're looking to set up a brick and mortar structure whereby people are coming into your business or interacting with your employees on a regular basis. This is a business that is for a low impact, low risk type organization. So if you're thinking of something low risk where you don't have a lot of public interaction and engagement and your product is pretty stable, like it's not like you're selling flour or fish or rice that might spoil and make someone sick and suddenly you're being sued because you've made someone sick, then, if you're selling bubble gums, well, chances are there's not a lot of liability where that is concerned. People are not going to sue you for maybe they might sue you for chewing on a candy and breaking a tooth, but it's an unexpected and unforeseen situation. So the second kind of business structure is a partnership. Partnerships are certainly similar to sole proprietorships in terms of ease of structuring. Partnerships are designed for 2 or more owners. So if you're thinking of going into business with your sister, your mother, your brother, your husband, a friend or friends, then partnerships are definitely a good structure to organize. There are 2 types of partnerships. You have a limited partnership and you have a limited liability partnership. The difference is that the limited liability offers you a little bit more protection against lawsuits with a partner. Like let's say a partner were to sue you for something, there's a certain amount of protection you have against that type of situation. But like a sole proprietorship, in terms of taxes, you would basically file the taxes through your personal tax returns at the end of the year. You would also file a doing business as with the state, so you can get back a DBA number or EIN number that you file with your payroll taxes and your sales taxes and that sort of thing. So it's easy to form and it has the same kind of liability, nuances that sole proprietorship has, but it gives you the ability to own a business with your friend or family or just a total stranger for that matter. And it gives you the kind of infrastructure, the legal infrastructure that you need without jumping through a lot of hoops or bells and whistles, right? The third is a limited liability company, LLC. Now, I noticed that you might have seen a lot of law firms having LLCs at the end of their names, Jonathan, Simpleton, and Weiss, LLC. Well, LLC is limited liability company. And a lot of law firms set up in this structure because it takes advantage of the partnership situation and it takes advantage of the limited liability situation in terms of a corporation. So it kind of combines two different worlds into one, and it works. So the corporations I haven't spoken to about as yet, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Limited liability is about limiting the liability you have in terms of exposure to lawsuits. It's a little easier to form than a corporation, but it protects partners against each other. The disadvantage of this situation is that if one partner leaves, then some states require the entire LLC to be dissolved and restarted again. So it's almost like each partner is dependent on the other, because if one person were to do something, it affects the other, and therefore the state requires that you dissolve. Now, limited liability companies can be one person or more than one. Usually there are more than one situations. And like I mentioned, it does have a lot of protection available for the partners involved. The good thing about the limited liability company is that it allows you to file your taxes in two forms, right? Personally, you can file your taxes once, or through a corporate type of structure whereby you file it as a business and then you file it as a partnership. You're paying taxes twice there. So that's the disadvantage of the limited liability companies, that you pay taxes twice in some situations depending on how you situate the business, and you also have the potential that if a partner were to say bye-bye, you would have to dissolve the company and restart it with a brand new mission and a brand new structure. Okay? Now, the fourth type of business structure is the corporations. And these are my favorites. And I'll tell you why they're my favorites. They offer you the maximum protection in terms of liability from your personal assets. If someone were to sue you for something, they sue the company and it ends there. They're not able to sue you for, the equity on your house or money you may have in the bank. They're only suing the company. The company is seen as a separate entity from you. Now, there are three basic types of corporations. You have the C corporation, you have the S corporation, and you have the 501c3. 501c3 corporations. Those are the non-for-profits. Now, the C corporation is basically the most common. It is what most publicly trading companies are. Most big shakers and movers are C corporations. They allow you to have limitless numbers of shareholders and stakeholders and owners, and you don't have to be a US citizen. You can be a citizen of any country on this planet. It allows you limitless potential. Now, the C corporation does offer you full protection. So if someone sues the company, like I mentioned, the company is sued, the partners are not affected personally, the shareholders are not affected personally, the stakeholders are not affected at all. So it offers you maximum protection, but when it comes to taxes, you're paying taxes twice. I'll tell you what I mean. So the corporation files at the end of the year a corporate tax return. It's 1120. And that return pays the corporate taxes, which can be 30%, right, on earnings. And the dividends are then given to the stakeholders, shareholders, and divvied up among the owners. Now, the owners then take that money and put it on their personal tax returns, and they have to file their personal tax returns. And guess what? They pay taxes on the dividends or the profits. So that's what it means by paying taxes twice. In C corporations, the company is taxed once, the owners are taxed a second time. But it offers you maximum protection from lawsuits, liabilities, and unforeseen situations that are, popping up in any day situation within running a company. And this is something to take in mind if you have a high-risk company whereby you're in a storefront, you're dealing with a lot of people. A lot of unexpected things happen all the time, and you want to be prepared as much as possible. So having maximum protection for your personal assets is important. The C corporation provides that to you if you have a lot of people who own shares or parts of the business. Now, I'm going to tell you about the S corporation, which happens to be my absolute favorite. And I'll tell you why it's my favorite. The S corporation is like the C corporation in that it provides you with the same maximum protection against lawsuits and liabilities and unforeseen nuances that happens in running a company. But when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you're filing your taxes once. You file your taxes as a 1040, but you pay taxes one time. It goes through your personal tax return. So whatever money you make, you're only paying taxes once. Now, this is wonderful because it means that you're protected from potential liability on the outside world, but you're not paying twice as much taxes. The ownership structure, usually you can have up to 100 people owning portions of the business, but no more than 100, and everyone has to be a U.S. citizen. They all have to be citizens of the United States. So that's the only drawback, which to me is not a big deal, because I think that when you look at all of the weighing and balancing of the liabilities versus the volume of taxes, it's not a high price to pay, especially if everybody in the company are U.S. citizens. You have a lot of protection and a lot of legal ramifications that you can actually incur if you don't pursue this venue, right? For example, what I mean by that is if you think of the sole proprietorship, right? If you set up as a sole proprietorship because, oh my God, S corporations are too complicated, you open yourself for all kinds of lawsuits that someone might say did or did not happen, and you have to go through as a sole proprietor all of the nuances involved in dealing with attorneys and the monies that go into lawsuits and things like that. So the S corporation is my favorite. And then the other thing that I have to mention before we go is that with the S corporation, you have to get permission from the IRS. So unlike the C corporation, the limited liability company, the partnership, the sole proprietorship, with this S corporation, you file through the IRS. So the IRS gives you permission to set up this company. Now, the next company that we go on to in terms of corporations is the 501c3 corporation, which also requires an IRS filing. You need to get permission from the IRS to set up a 501c3 corporation. Well, it's an organization. They're non-for-profit organizations. They're designed to provide services within a community like a church, funding agency, services for the poor or those in need. So they're not designed to be profit-based, and there are a lot of strict rules involved in terms of how these companies are structured. Like, for example, you cannot share profit with owners of the company. The IRS is very, very strict on that. They're strict on making sure that the company's set up properly, that it's managed well, that there's a board of directors that are not personally hired by the company or the organization, that there are meetings and there are minutes to the meetings, and there's voting, and there is absolute clarity in how the company is run or the organization is run. Now, the owners are open because you can have multiple owners who own a 501c3. The liability of the company, it offers great protection for those who run the company. I like to call them stakeholders versus owners. They are protected against lawsuits or any impending legal obligation that the organization may incur. So from that perspective, 501c3 corporations offer maximum protection for those involved. It does not allow you to draw on profits and dividends and that sort of thing. You have to reinvest the money back into the company or ensure that the money is moving towards what the mission of the 501(c)(3) was initially set up to do. So You think about that. If you were setting up that kind of corporation, you might want to go through an attorney just to make sure you have all the, your ducks lined up, because there are a lot of different things that you might miss. So there must be clarity in terms of what you're doing and how you're doing it with the IRS, with the state, and with the organization itself. The other thing about the corporations is that you need to kind of have a board of directors, and you need to have meetings and minutes and document those minutes. So these are things to think about when structuring your company, how you want to structure it. What is the best situation for you? What offers you the most protection if that's what you so choose? How you pay your taxes at the end of the year. Are you going to be paying double taxes? Do you want to pay taxes once? How you are structured in terms of your ownership. Are you 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 100, 200? So all of these things matter. Think about them. Think about what I say in terms of the corporations, in terms of the LLCs and the partnerships. They're all very good structures to legitimize your company, to provide you with a structure within your community that makes your customers, your vendors, your employees, and your stakeholders confident in what it is you're doing. And it also provides you with a certain liability protection against your personal assets. And also in terms of your taxes, it allows you to choose how you want to organize your tax return at the end of the year. So they're all good tools that helps you run your business successfully. So thank you for listening. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notification of upcoming shows where I talk about entrepreneurship on all levels. I talk about personal empowerment, and I talk about career development, how to move your life forward through uncertainty and difficulties that keep you sometimes stuck in a place of uncertainty. Until next time, I'm Michael Robinson. Remember, this is your time. Use it wisely.